Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. Good conversation. Tim Takacs is with us, elder law attorney. I've had a couple of calls, people sharing their questions, their personal situations, and that just leads to more discussion. And one of the things we kind of touched on, trusts, and I know how you feel about trusts. So I always like to ask you about trusts.
Yes.
Because some people don't get excited about trusts. Some people don't even know what they are. But you get very excited.
I get excited about that. And I know our longtime viewers know is that I'll basically tell everybody is it's one of the greatest products of the human mind. Because basically what a trust is that you are, so let's say that you are an elderly person and you want to leave something to your children or your grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and let's say in particular one of your great-grandchildren is a child with special needs. You want to set money aside for that for your great-grandchild. So how do you do that? Because you're going to be dead when that child is, maybe before they even reach adulthood. And that, in fact, I met with a couple today where they have a 30-year-old, she's born in 95, so it makes her 27.
Wow.
But basically, she's a child with special needs, and her 50-some-year-old parents are going, okay, we need to make sure we have a plan in place for her, and so, and that plan has to go for that child's lifetime. And so you're going to have so you have to have a legal mechanism where you can set money aside, and it would be held in a trust by a trusted person who is called the trustee, and that person, the trustee, is then tasked over the course of often decades, in making sure, that money, that the assets out of the trust are distributed for the benefit of your great-grandchild with special needs.
So my question about that makes sense. So if I come in and talk to you about a trust, I would certainly trust you to manage it. But now, we're talking about a generation later. If I'm talking about my young child and you and I aren't around, then how does that work? How does it work, for that person a generation later?
Yeah, so what would happen is, like, for instance, I'm not as young as I used to be when I started on OpenLine many, many years ago.
Me either.
Yes, right. That's true. And here I am, and I was telling this family this afternoon is that we're gonna set this up for your for your 27-year-old, and you may, since you're in your 50s, it may not be the last estate plan that you do, and you may come in here in 15 or 20 years. I may not be here. In fact, I hope I'm not. I don't need to be working that long. But maybe one of my partners, maybe Chris, who's he's 20 years younger than I am. Perhaps he will be there. But regardless, maybe the family will have moved out of state or wherever it is, but they should be able to go to any attorney and understand the work that we did, how we set it up so that it benefited, their adult child with special needs. If the trustee, for instance, whoever the trustee is, in this case, and of course, basically at this point, nobody's dead. So, the trust would be set up to come into effect when the parent dies.
Right. Yes. The parent dies, the child is still alive, and this gives the child money.
And so then the trust then gets set up. The trust gets funded, what we call it. So now there's a trust for the benefit of the child with special needs, and maybe at that point, the trustee, the person who's been appointed the trustee, says, "Look, I can't do this," or maybe they can't because they're dead or they're in some other posture. But in those situations, and I always tell our families is that a trust will never fail for lack of a trustee. The worst case scenario is that you've got a trust that maybe is going on for many, many years. The original trustee has died. Maybe there's a provision in the trust document that allows the original trustee to name a successor. So the successor takes over. Maybe if there is no successors named, then somebody who has concerned about the welfare of that of the trust beneficiary, the child with special, the adult child with special needs, will actually go to court, and ask the court to appoint a trustee. I mean, I literally had that case come in today, where we had all of my elderly client died. She left a trust for the benefit of her adult disabled son, and the trustees of that trust were the siblings, of that adult disabled son, who both have now who have also died.
Oh wow!
Yes, I mean, so it's like who knows who figured that the adult disabled child would survive his mother and his two siblings.
Right.
And so what we're going to do in that case is we're going to ask the court to appoint another trustee, another family member.
Wow. That's all right. See, yeah, that is interesting. That's all very interesting. And so that is trusts. What else? What are some of the other big questions you have? I was very interested. You mentioned something about reverse mortgages and all of that kind of thing. Do you have a lot of questions about reverse mortgages? Do you have advice that's a blanket advice, or does it vary person to person?
It's a reverse mortgage is a very interesting product, and basically for viewers who are not really familiar with that, people will say, "Well, I'm living here in a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house, or whatever the value of the house is. It's paid for, and I'm land rich and cash poor. So I've got $500,000 house that I've had for 25 years, and it's paid for, blah blah blah. And I've got $50,000 in the bank, and I really want to be able to stay at home, and I need to get money out of my house." And so basically what the reverse mortgage companies do will say, well, we will let you borrow against your house, but you do not, and we will pay you like a monthly payment for however long, for as long as you live, pretty much, and then and you don't have to pay us back until you're dead or the house is sold.
Right. And they would never sell the house if you're alive, right? They can't sell it. You have an obligation to maintain it, correct?
That's right.
And if you don't, there could be problems.
There could be problems, yeah. And certainly, it's a very interesting industry, and I'm sure you probably, I'm not saying I'm sure, but I suspect there are people that know more about, you've had on this show that know more about it than I do, but my assumption is that if the house that when the mortgage is set up, if you've got $500,000, if that's what the house is worth, they're not going to probably lend you $500,000.
Right.
They're going to lend you maybe $200,000, $350,000, whatever that number is, because they know that if the house declines in value, if the house is not maintained, they want to protect their interest. So if the house is not maintained, and then they have to do like repair work or whatever, when the house is sold, then that money is used to cover those costs.
Yeah, very interesting. And I don't know, I've never really interviewed anybody who has more knowledge. I've just seen those commercials. You see those commercials every once in a while, and so you wonder about that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. Well, you want to wrap it up with that, or? No,
I'm good.
Okay, we'll take a break, and if you want to call in, there's a number 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.